meeting of the Economic Development Infrastructure Committee for the 2023, I was going to say school year, but you get what I mean. Let's start with the roll call, please.
Johnson.
Present.
Whiteford is not here yet. Markham.
Here.
Miller is absent with notice. Brahman.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Spiz.
Present.
Charles.
Present.
Quorum.
Quorum is present. Wonderful. If I could get Commissioner Brendan Johnson to lead us in the pledge.
Oh, my pleasure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 4, approval of the minutes, and I believe we're taking them A/B. I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes from November 2nd, 2022 and December 7th, 2022.
Support.
Moved and supported, and I believe that's roll call is fine?
Want me to-
Or prompt the vote. Thank you.
You have 68 0 nays.
Thank you. That motion passes. That takes us to item 5 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move as presented.
Moved by Mr. Spiz, supported by Mr. Johnson. Oh,
I
With
just want to
discussion.
look for one thing.
sure.
I'd like to add something if it's not here, and that is just to ask Patty Dibb to speak to us about the broadband MyHigh session she went to yesterday.
Do you want her to do that as a public comment or
No,
as a other business? Number 12?
public comment's probably fine, either one.
Sure.
At the end is fine, public comment at the end.
All right.
I mean, I just want her to keep everybody up to speed on broadband and where we're at, and, because we're like, but she went to a meeting yesterday and has information, so let's hear it.
Right. So Commissioner Markham, I just want to verify, did you want that to be on the record or public comment where it would just be the high-level pieces?
I do other business,
What'd you say, Chris?
maybe other business, so it could be.
Yeah, just put it under other business then.
Okay.
And
And just double checking, that doesn't require any amendments to the agenda. Agenda can just
No,
stay
we'll
as it
note
is.
it in the minutes
We'll
when
note
it happens.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything further on the agenda? If not,
Chairwoman Charles, this is Michael Keys from the BOC staff. I'll be sure to move over that memo under other business, so if you refresh your iPads, you'll be able to access that throughout the meeting.
thank you, Mr. Keys.
Got locked out.
Wait a second.
And I believe that will set us up right nicely for, oh no, we still need to vote on that approval of the agenda, so we'll just take a moment for technical assistance.
I would take a motion in a second.
As
Formally,
amended,
as well.
yeah, as amended, the
Okay.
agenda is amended from Spiz and whoever seconded.
Okay.
Yep.
So where we are now is there seems to be an amendment, Mrs. Markham, so
I'll support the amendment.
thank you. And I think that requires 2 votes.
Hold
So
on. Yeah, sorry, I was prepared for the first one.
I understand.
Civic Plus?
Why don't we do the amendment in a voice vote? So all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Those signs of affirmation carry, and that amendment passes. So that takes us back to the original one, which is simply to approve the agenda, and we can prompt the vote for that
As amended.
as amended.
Is it up there? Oh.
Yeah, 68 0 nays.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That motion passes. Thank you so much. Takes us to item number 6 on the agenda, which is public comment. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to address the committee today?
Go ahead.
Making sure. Looks like we are, as they say, all family, so no public comment, so I'll close public comment accordingly. Item number 7 on the agenda is communications. I'm just going to do a quick refresh, make sure I'm up to speed. All right, so that we have under communications, I need to open this with a motion. Let's go ahead and open communications.
I was going to move to receive and file.
Receive and file. Any support?
I'll support it.
Ms. Long? Supports? And we can prompt the vote. And again, this is for alternative energy supplier vendor and the Diamond Project Report, and no pressure, but Sean is here if we have questions or discussion. Now is a fine time. Commissioner Rahman.
Just one quick question. I'm being new to it. I just wanted to inquire, is there a history with this particular vendor? Do we know? Again, it's something I wanted to quickly ask on.
Absolutely.
What
There's
are-
always
what
time
are-
for that.
Yeah, what are experiences with this particular vendor? Obviously, everybody knows DTE. I, for one, am not familiar, but maybe everybody else on the board is, so I just wanted to quickly inquire on that. And then I understand, too, it's a 10-year commitment, correct? Just wanted to confirm what the out clause is, generally speaking, on something like this, if we so desire to pull out prior to 10 years.
Thank you, thank you. Do we have anyone from staff who's able to speak to that question?
Or purchasing?
Or,
If I could make a recommendation,
yeah,
I would
Mr.
recommend
Spence.
we put Commissioner Rahman in contact with purchasing and individuals that put this through with relative to the 10-year contract, but just in general, it's about a $12 million savings to the county to do this. So there's a lot more detail behind it and the out clauses, but it's all there. I just don't remember what they are off the top of my head. But we
Yes.
should be able to provide you that information. Okay.
Yes, and the good thing is it's a communication document, so it's a receive and file, so we're not necessarily acting in any way, but we'll make sure to address that.
Also, I just want to add, the alternative energy was approved by the board at the very end of the year. So this is just to carry forward as required as a communication to this committee, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further on communications? Seeing none, we can prompt for the receive and file. Thank you.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays, passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. That takes us to item 8 on the agenda, which is presentations, and I am thoroughly looking forward to this one, as I hope you are. We have the Oakland County Land Bank Authority, OCLBA presentation. So we'll definitely entertain the presentation, and then afterwards, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file this presentation. Before you start, Ms. Markham, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
I was going to make the motion if we needed one.
Okay, thank you. Floor is yours, and please make sure to introduce yourself just in case.
The treasurer's right out there, if we want to invite him in.
It's not a Zoom call, morning. It's not a Zoom, but I'll hang
Welcome.
up on that when you come join you.
Welcome, Treasurer
Thank you.
Wittenberg.
My name is Jill Robinson.
Oh, Ms. Robinson, I need you to make sure to bring the mic right up to your face. Thank you.
All right. My name is Jill Robinson. I'm with the Oakland County Treasurer's Office and with the Oakland County Land Bank Authority. And I'm going to give you hopefully a kind of a brief presentation. I think Commissioner Charles got to see part of it when I did it with the planners gathering for Oakland County a month or so ago. So I condensed it a bit because that was about an hour, and I figured you didn't want to listen to me for an hour. So we'll kind of go through the Treasurer's Office and how that leads into the Oakland County Land Bank Authority. And a little background about me, I have been with the Treasurer's Office for almost 9 years now. Previously, I was a city planner in the city of Birmingham. And then I worked on properties for the State Land Bank, in the Michigan State Land Bank. So let's kind of look at an overview of what we'll talk about today. Tax foreclosure prevention, it's something in the Treasurer's Office we care very deeply about, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Talk about after tax foreclosure, what happens to those properties that are left over. And then we'll talk about the Land Bank Authority and how that was created and what it means for the county. Okay, so before tax foreclosure, and I think I said that the treasurer's office, I think the first thing that we tell people is we want to avoid foreclosure altogether. We understand that stabilized neighborhoods are most important for residents in the county, and keeping people in their homes is the most important things for neighborhoods. So unfortunately, foreclosure exists. We work with property owners. We have one-on-one meetings with them. We call them taxpayer assistance meetings, TAMs for short, if you ever hear anybody say that. We have something called a financial empowerment center, so we can meet with folks that have delinquent taxes or other issues. We can refer them to all sorts of resources. We help with budgeting. We help them fill out applications for any grant programs that are available, like my half right now, which is the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, that has up to $25,000 for delinquent taxes, mortgages, and utilities. There's a new program through Michigan called My Hope that is for energy efficiency, another $25,000 that can help people with windows and roofs and appliances, all sorts of things. We can help people with credit repair, with business planning, so if anybody has any issues, they can call our office and we can send them to the right place and get them help that they need. Also like Accounting Aid Society and the RAP program for water, that kind of stuff. So kind of before the Land Bank Authority, we in the Treasurer's Office had something called a surplus property program. And I think one question that people ask most often is, how the heck did the Treasurer's Office get so many properties and what do you do with them and what's the story there? How do I get them? Ownership of property is transferred to the Treasurer's Office after tax foreclosure, which is at least 3 years of delinquent taxes. If it doesn't sell at an auction, we have 2 auctions every year. It's then transferred to the county treasurer and it goes onto our surplus list. Each year through the foreclosure process, whatever doesn't sell gets added to that surplus list. So it continues to add up. We sell them, and we'll get to that in a minute. The treasurer's office maintains the property. We have a budget for maintenance and other things that need to happen. And we work really hard to get them back into productive use. And that means find people that are responsible, that want to take care of properties, that live in the neighborhood, that have a plan, a real plan, the ability to actually do what they say they're going to do. And in 2014, when I started with the Treasurer's Office, we had about 2,500 properties, and that was a lot. So surplus property is simply property that doesn't sell through tax foreclosure or isn't taken by municipality through the right of first refusal, which is what is allowed prior to the auction. So the municipality can say, I would like that property. They pay the delinquent taxes, interest, and fees. And prior to the land bank, with the surplus property program, what my goal was to create was kind of a quasi-land bank. I was brought over to the Treasurer's Office to create a land bank, and that just didn't happen until recently. So my goal was to, change the program, and instead of just selling to whoever wanted property, really look holistically at what that means for our communities when people from outside of the county or the city or the neighborhood buy properties. We know that has an effect on neighborhoods when people don't take care of things, even if it's not mowing grass. So here's just a couple of houses that through foreclosure did not sell, ended up on the surplus property. We found folks that had experience, not a ton of experience. There's a lot of people, especially in Pontiac, that really want to renovate houses, and getting a structure that needs work and setting them up with folks that can kind of mentor them helps a lot. So we've had the ability to transform a few different houses, and now these have homeowners in them, which is also an important thing for stabilizing a neighborhood. And these are all in the GM Modern Housing neighborhood in Pontiac, which is a nice historically designated neighborhood.
Roughly where in Pontiac, the major cross streets?
These ones?
Uh-huh.
These are on Oliver. So our Perry Park is North Perry. It's right 1 block in from North Perry.
Okay.
Glenwood Plaza over there.
Mhm.
Yep. So I think I mentioned that we have an annual budget for maintenance of the properties that we do own right now. The budget is around $600,000 a year, and then we also have a small budget for demolition if necessary. So we mow lawns, we clear sidewalks, you know, when you're walking around a neighborhood and you see the sidewalk completely covered with grass and nobody can get through it, there's branches hanging over the sidewalk, we can clear that out. Again, what people deserve is safe neighborhoods, and if we can help make those better, we're gonna do it. Illegal dumping, we work very closely with code enforcement in any city where we own properties. They can give us a call and we will send somebody out and make sure it gets taken care of if we own it. So the county treasurer's office has that maintenance budget. Right now, the Oakland County Land Bank Authority does not have a budget. So for now, all of those properties will stay with the county treasurer's office. And then we just look at ways to hopefully change how a building looks. Just because it's vacant doesn't mean it always has to look like the one on the left. It's expensive, but it also helps us, this is on M59, maybe you've seen it on West Huron and Green Street over by the hospital. Just that, putting that clear view plastic window kind of transformed what that looks like. Now, it doesn't necessarily look like a fully occupied building, but it also doesn't look completely vacant. So it's just one other thing that we try to do, and we have the funds to do it. So September, the Oakland County Land Bank Authority was officially created through an intergovernmental agreement between the county and the State Land Bank Authority. And how that kind of happened, I think, you know, sometimes land banks are hard to understand, but a project happened in Commerce Township that was an old quarry. And because it was transferred into the land bank, it then qualified for brownfield funding. So kind of without that mechanism that helped them pay for some infrastructure and utilities, it probably would remain a quarry for a very long time, if not forever. So that happened, and I think everybody was like, oh, we should have a land bank. And so here we are. And obviously, nobody works in a vacuum. All of these boards and authorities are super important. I think just getting the message about this tool that we have, working with all of our state and federal agencies. I think there is a real opportunity for the county to partner with the state agencies, MEDC. There's a lot of really cool tools out there that can kind of stack together and make a project more feasible. And obviously, if we can get a project together, it makes the county better and it makes all of our relationships better. This is just a visual of how a land bank works. I think I had written it out and then I found this and thought, I learned by pictures, so this helps me. So land bank is a privately owned property. Unfortunately ends up being foreclosed by the county. The county is the foreclosing governmental unit for here. After it forecloses, it becomes, in our case, it's the property of the treasurer's office. The treasurer can then deed it over to the land bank. Other sources, folks can donate property, land banks can privately purchase properties through realtors or other avenues, other kinds of government swaps. We're working with the state land bank right now. They own about 120-ish properties in Pontiac, and we're right now working with them to develop a map that just shows where all the publicly owned property is located, so we can start looking at what is able to be assembled for bigger projects. So they could deed the properties over to us. And then the land bank, there's just a list over there. Can do expedited quiet title, which is clearing the title of any clouds on it, and they can do that within about 45 days. Maintain, let me get 2 microphones.
So they can do it online.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're doing that great of a job.
I know, maintain, rehab, demolish properties if necessary. Right now we're working, we get a grant from the state land bank through the general fund allocation of $200,000. We're gonna use that to stabilize some more of those houses in that GM Modern Housing neighborhood. Then we're gonna work with developers to continue the renovation and then sell to homeowners. And we can put a deed restriction into the deed that requires homeownership for a certain period of time. And that is our plan. We can strategically assemble parcels, so if a developer comes to us and says, we're trying to buy 7 properties here, we have one right now, what do we do? Well, if you have a plan and you come to our board and you tell us what you're doing and your experience and we can see it, the board could approve us to hold on to the properties while you assemble them. The taxes are reduced to 0 because it's on government-owned property. And so that assists a developer with assembling property and holding off on paying taxes for a period of time, all under a development agreement that is agreed with by everybody. And then the land bank has the ability to flexibly set the sales price on any property. So highest and best doesn't necessarily matter. We're looking at the end user, the experience, what is gonna happen with that. And then just looking for responsible developers to help us out with all of this. And then this is just kind of the Land Bank Act works very closely with the Brownfield Act. When a property comes into the land bank, it qualifies as a brownfield, so they can then do their brownfield plan and qualify to get a myriad of things approved under that plan. And thankfully, we have a great Brownfield Redevelopment Authority in the county with Brad Hansen. He's an expert, and he comes to our board meetings and is very helpful with all of his knowledge. And then this just talks about what the eligible activities are. All sorts of things, due diligence, brownfield prep, demolition, utilities, infrastructure, site prep. All these things cost a lot of money, and if we can assist people and developers with a little bit of the cost, then that might make their project feasible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. And then just some ideas of that other land banks have done that I think we're looking forward to getting into our guidelines, which we're developing right now with the help of Center for Community Progress. Housing, I think we talk a lot about affordable housing, and I think affordable housing, and I've been saying this a lot lately, people are probably sick of it, but there's affordable housing with capital A, with incentives, and there's affordable housing that people that work in your communities can afford. So I think it's important to have both of those. Affordable just means the people that work at the places you visit can live in the places where they want to. So looking at that, looking at missing middle housing, which is duplexes, fourplexes, kind of on the edge of these single-family residential neighborhoods that have been created historically everywhere. Assembling land, park creation and expansion, and trail expansion. You know, always looking at the tax foreclosure list and seeing on a map where things might cross paths with those kind of things. And then dealing with obsolete or contaminated property and working with the various agencies that can help clean those up. And then this is just kind of a shameless plug. When I started at the county, we had 2,500 vacant lots. The majority of those were in the city of Pontiac. And it was kind of, you know, what do you do with these? We can maintain them, but you kind of saw that people were using a lot of them already. So I started trying to figure out who people were, so we started meeting at a Welcome Missionary Baptist Church. And the main thing that we saw with these gardens is people didn't know how to deal with critters. Groundhogs were a big problem. People do very strange things to get rid of them, but it was an interesting conversation and just a good way to build community and introduce people to each other that are already doing similar things in the neighborhood. So we started this nonprofit now about 3 years ago called Growing Pontiac. And it's now an organization that has an executive director, all volunteer-based still. But we have classes, we work collaboratively with Yad Ezra, which is in Berkeley, with La Familia, which is a social service agency in Pontiac. All sorts of classes, all sorts of activity sharing and volunteer activities. So if you're interested, check that website out, growingpontiac.org. And then what's next? We have communicated with all of the municipalities in the county. We sent them an email and said, hey, this is what's happening. Let us know if you have any projects going on. Obviously, the earlier the conversations when you're dealing with economic development, the better. So that's kind of the message. If you have something, come to us and we can work with, I see Dom over there, we can all work together We work very closely with the planning division here in the county. We are working to collaborate more with MEDC and find other grants that we can use. And then we are also planning to create a qualified developer pool through an RFQ. So when we do have assembly of properties, we can say, hey, single-family residential, who can do this, who has the experience, and they will submit a proposal, and then we can go through that, that activity. And then just follow all the changing legislation that the Treasurer's Office is dealing with. And the end goal is to bring properties back to productive use, and that doesn't mean necessarily having a new house on it. It could be a park, or it could be a garden, or it could be a side lot for somebody if they want to build a garage, all sorts of different uses. And then that's me. If anybody has any questions, it's my email, it's my phone number. I'm always available, and also available right now.
Thank you, Ms.
Yep.
Robinson, for that
You're welcome.
wonderful presentation. I have questions on the floor. Mr. Weipert, we'll start with you.
So prior to Oakland County having a land bank, the state had a land bank, and so you were talking about, there's a lot of state properties,
About 120, yeah.
because there was no place for those properties to go except for the state.
The state
Well,
actually, when I was
if
with
they
the,
didn't go to auction, or,
well, those actually were acquired when I worked at the state land bank, a lot of them. So the DNR, I think it was the DNR, used to be the foreclosing governmental unit. So some of those are so old. They've been with the state land bank for many years. There's other ones that were purchased through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program that was probably 12 years ago now. So there's a lot of purchasing and demolition of properties, and the land bank just still continues to own them.
the state land bank.
State land bank, yes.
And then what's the transition from the state to the county? Does the county have to pay?
No, it will just be a transfer, but we're working on that. So we don't want, because we don't have a budget for the Land Bank Authority, and we don't want them transferring them to the Treasurer's Office. So we're working on this map to figure out what properties we can assemble together, and then they can transfer them to the county land bank, and then we can then deed them to a developer. That's how I see it happening.
And that's in the process. 'Cause
In the
we're-
process.
We're relatively new.
Yes, September new, yeah.
And then the comment on the automatically eligible for the brownfield?
Mhm.
Is that just because of the nature of the properties, or, I mean, don't they have to have an underlying?
No, it's through the Brownfield Act and the Land Bank Act together, yeah.
And they don't have to be contaminated, they don't
No.
have to be?
No, they're automatically qualified as Brownfield,
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
yeah.
I don't see any other questions on the prompt. Do we have any questions from any committee members?
Thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Progress.
You're welcome.
I do have one, though, Jill. If you could just say, in your estimation, won't hold you to it, but when you talked about the treasurer, those properties transferring, in most cases, would go to a LBA, a Land Bank Authority, but right now ours is technically considered owned by the treasurer because the Oakland County Land Bank Authority has no budget. And I was just curious, is that pretty standard with land bank authorities? Should they have budgets? This is all hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, it's an economic development tool. I think what we see it as right now, as we get our feet under us, is working with people that have projects that would then be transferred into the land bank. We would hold on to them. That way they qualify for that brownfield funding. We'll hold on to properties while they assemble. So I don't really see right now a lot of properties transferring into the land bank unless there's a specific project in mind.
Okay. Well, certainly we look to keep posted. Go ahead.
Yeah, and on those, along those lines, so, you know, there is no budget for the Land Bank Authority as of now, so everything, that's why we have everything in the treasurer's office. There is a line item in the treasurer's budget, right, that you all have approved in the past. But the goal is ultimately, because the land bank is a separate authority, to have enough funding there where we can actually no longer have to house these things in the treasurer's office and our budget, which will actually lower our budget, right? So I think that was one of the, you know, there are a lot of reasons why we really wanted to move forward with the land bank, but that was one of them as well, is that ultimately it will lower, it'll stay, you know, like save taxpayer dollars in the county and lower the budget. So I think that's something that's really important.
All right. Were you going to say something
Oh, I
else?
was gonna say, I think we didn't hit on a land bank is typically funded, which isn't ideal, but any
property that comes into the land bank, then the land bank captures 50% of the taxes for 5 years. And that is kind of with the Commerce Township project, that capture was about $2.5 million. So the county was like, why are we giving that money to the state when the county can have it? I call that a unicorn project. I don't think most of them are like that. So I didn't want to get too excited, but there, you know, on the horizon, there are properties that could very well, maybe not be that big, but have similar implications, right? There could be other, we were working with one in Farmington that was gonna be a big project. I don't know that that's still gonna happen, but working with something in Farmington Hills, there's a large swath of property that could be eligible to come into the land bank. So it's just, I think, we have to vet every single project independently of each other, and then have a development agreement about how long we'll hold on to it, and then transfer it back, because we don't want to be left holding any properties that their project falls apart.
Right.
That's not our responsibility. So I think the budget will be interesting moving forward, just to see what kind of projects we are able to do through this authority.
Yeah, go ahead.
She mentioned, but we literally sent an email out to every single community. If they're a smaller community, maybe if it's a township, just their supervisor, if they have anyone in economic development for their community. We sent a letter to them introducing the land bank and saying we're here to partner. And we have already heard from some of them as well. But it's also important for all of you as you go back to your communities, as you're having these conversations with the leaders in your communities, that the land bank is here to work with everyone, right? That this is an economic development tool that will benefit the entire county, right? I mean, you know, at this point, Pontiac is kind of the focus because of just the properties we have, but it doesn't mean we're going to be exclusively with Pontiac. We want to work with all the communities, and we look at this as an opportunity for everyone in the county. So just want you to all be aware of that, and as you're having those conversations, when you go back to the leadership in your respective communities, that they know that we're here to work and partner with them.
And Robert's the board chair.
So by
Yes.
by virtue of the, you know, so the treasurer is the chair of the board, and then there are 4 other members that were appointed by 3 that were appointed by the Board of Commissioners, 1 that was appointed by the executive. So, and I can tell you as of now, the meetings have been going very well. We've all seemed to, you know, we're all working together. We've been very productive. Every meeting we've come together and we keep moving forward with a lot of different things, approving, like the state, Jill can probably attest to this, but you're the one that has this conversation, just talking with the state land bank, and they're like, wow, you guys are moving really fast in Oakland County. You're getting things done.
Yes,
And
that's how we do it.
so that's the plan.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff to hear, and we look forward to just, you know, interim reporting or presentations as you are building this out even further. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that will conclude this portion of the agenda, item 8. And
We receive the file.
yeah,
And I'll
let's,
support it.
thank you. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Time to vote.
Yeah.
No.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays. That means that motion carried. Thank you all. Item number 9 on our agenda is the consent agenda. And that is the Tri-Party Road Improvement Program fiscal year 2023 appropriations. And you can see this, the communities represented there: Madison Heights, Novi, Troy, and Novi. I will entertain a motion to open and approve the consent agenda.
Nobody's on there.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll support it.
Thank you, thank you. Markham and Whitebird in that order. Any discussion, thoughts, comments? Seeing none, we can prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. And what we're, the chair, now that we're at item 10, will entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of considering the purchase or lease of a property. Commissioner Johnson moves and Commissioner Spiz supports. to close the meeting. That's what it says. Let's do a roll call vote before we close the door.
Johnson?
Present.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Rahman? Long?
Yes.
Spiz? Yes. Charles?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. And we will pause for technical setting up and what have you. T.
We still have
Okay. AI back there.
But I'd like to find out the other.
Yep.
You, Phil? I do not.
Right here.
I'm gonna find
We
it.
need,
And then it shows up on hers as a
Oh, the
list in order.
leaving, I don't think that phone's
But
Yeah,
we're only
yeah.
about halfway capable of doing
ju-
it that way
just
in
a second.
committees, so
We are-
you're not,
It's good to know, so
yeah.
it doesn't become possible, like everybody's fighting with each other.
right, right.
This has been a while.
Yeah, so you, good
So
to make your
close.
comment, yeah.
Awesome. I declare the meeting is back in open session. The chair will entertain a motion that facilities management be authorized to proceed in accordance with the directives discussed in closed session.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Markham, supported by Long. And let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Oh,
Okay.
I got another one. Do it again. Or twice, oh.
You have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays. That means that passes. And we appreciate your time today, Paul and Melissa, and go out there and win the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, committee. We're at item 11 on the public comment. We're on item 11 of the agenda, which is public comment. And I'm happy to hear from anyone from the public who might have graced our presence today in the room. Just making sure no one's running down the hall to speak to us during public comment. I declare public comment is closed, our second public comment. Let's go to item 12, which is other business, and we have the esteemed Patty Dibb,
Oh, my goodness.
Chief of Staff, Oakland County Commission, Board of Commissioners. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Don't forget to speak into the mic.
I'm kind of always here, just not always visible. So just wanted to update you post Tri-County Summit and on this subject of broadband, which is pretty nebulous. And Commissioner Whitebert and Markham have been sort of following this topic with our peer counties. So here's an update on what's going on. So the Michigan Office of High-Speed Internet, which is known as MyHigh Office, they are conducting 40 listening tours throughout the state. And that is for the purpose of getting feedback for the plan on how to spend $1.6 billion that is coming into Michigan. So those federal funds coming into the state of Michigan. So those funds are going to be used for the Broadband Equity Access Deployment Act, BEAD, and Digital Equity Act. And so those are two federal acts that, so many acronyms, it's really kind of hard to keep track of. So the listening stop I went to was in Warren, and there will be one in Pontiac tomorrow evening. And also, if you go to the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office website, you'll see that there are some more scheduled. These are in the 10, what they're calling the 10 prosperity areas of the state. They're getting feedback. They want to know from you what are the barriers to households and organizations, institutions having high-speed internet, because they see high-speed internet as the gateway to prosperity. Yes, and so they were saying, yes.
It's going up a lot. You can't get the $25 anymore.
Yeah, and the areas that they were interested in seeing the attendees to this meeting rank was affordability, availability, devices, tech savviness, and then other. So they went through the group, and what really emerged was that availability and affordability kind of goes hand in hand, and devices also falls in, tech savvy also falls into that as well. So they're all interconnected. So they were interested in hearing, as you know, community leaders, what your take is on the barriers to people or institutions having internet, high-speed quality internet access.
And so they're taking these results and they're going to use them for their plan on how to spend all this money that is coming into Michigan. So, that being said, I said there are all kinds of acronyms. There are, so I talked about two, which are coming down the line. And grants are open right now for Robin, which is something, I know, and I'm not even going to say what it is, because it's always referred to as Robin, but they're accepting grant applications now from communities to provide middle mile and last mile infrastructure service. So that's open right now, and they're asking, communities to plan, how they will get their community members who are unserved or underserved service. So, and then kind of going along that vein, we were, through our work with our peers at the Tri-County Summit, we were awarded federal funding via a grant in connection with Wayne County to do a survey of our county to make sure that we have an accurate portrayal of actual service. So previous to some surveys that the MyHigh office did, but those were done in rural areas, the data came from the providers, and providers often overstate their service because they were allowed to go by census tracts. So if they had one house on a street that had service but 19 others didn't, they were allowed to count all of those.
Oh.
So that's changing, and you've heard probably a lot about challenging the maps and going online. That's still going on, but what we're going to do, we've partnered with Wayne, and Walt Herzig from the executive office is going to be our partner on this, at least for the time being. It might go to, someone else. But we're going to contract with Merit, and Wayne County is as well, and we're going to do a survey so that we have really accurate data, so we know where the gaps are, we know where the holes are, and that will be happening soon.
I have a question in the queue from Commissioner Long.
And it might be in an early stage, the Patty, the 1.6 billion federal funds, will there be, or do you know if there will be like a calculation like they do funding for roads? How are they gonna divide that money up amongst Michigan? Is it gonna be need-based? Is it gonna be, like population, or do you know yet, or is that too early stage?
Yeah, that's what part of this listening tour is about,
Okay.
them gathering the information to see, is it infrastructure? Does it mostly go to putting the cabling out? Does it go to making sure that, everyone gets a device in the areas where it's, not feasible to get cabling or towers out there because providers won't do it if there aren't enough houses to connect to service? Then maybe is money spent on providing those residents with MiFis, the portable hotspots?
Okay, so that's all going to be determined by the need of each area, the money right now?
Yeah, so
Okay.
they're going throughout the whole state, and what they're gonna do, and I forgot to mention, so I'm glad you brought that up, once they put together the plan, they're gonna go back out to get feedback on that actual plan.
Okay, good.
So we have first the ability to provide, our priority input, and then we have ability to provide input on the actual plan that they put together.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Thank you, Patty. Appreciate that update. And now I'm interested in knowing what Robin stands for. So I'm going to go figure it out. It's an I or a Y.
Yeah, it's an I, and it's
an I.
It's kind of a stretch, but everybody knows it as Robin, so.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'd entertain a motion to receive and file that report if anyone's so inclined.
I'll move it.
Yeah,
I'll support it.
Markham and Whiteford, I guess. Wonderful. Well, we have done the business of the,
Oh,
there's a prompting of the vote. Thank you, Aaron.
I might need a voice vote.
Yeah, I think I'm
Okay.
Wiper
Yes.
and Raman.
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion passes to receive and file that. Thank you so much, everyone. And if there is nothing further from the body, this meeting is adjourned.
Oh, have time for the next one if you
That came up, but the vote didn't come up.